Alright, this is Old Electronics Fan, and this is a Harmon Kardon 330B that I bought brand new, I think. I don't think I have dates in here. Sometime in the early 80s, I think. This, I think, was my first real stereo that I bought, and I've got it on AM right now. It's actually pretty surprising. You can tell if you look at, well, this is not a high-end stereo, but it's surprisingly nice, especially if you choose more efficient vintage speakers. This probably won't do as well with modern lower speakers that are designed for higher power output, but so I can't leave that on very long or I will get hit. But hopefully you can tell that that sounds really good. Now, when I was looking through this, I encountered a couple of things. I've owned this for so long I forgot that it had a tuning meter. You can't see it right here because the lamp is gone. And as I go through, that's FM stereo, phono, and tape. I have only 2 bulbs there, and I didn't even notice that all of those weren't working. Wasn't paying any attention. And feel kind of silly, but yeah. But let's see, who was it? Yeah. So I went looking because one of the bulbs is this style. It's a fuse style. I don't know if I put. Anyway, well, this looks identical to the one that I had in here, except that this is LED. The bulbs that are in this, these wheat style lamps are frosted, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to look in here. The place that I got these, they have an eBay site, Affinity for Artifacts, and they got a whole bunch of things. A lot of bulbs of different types. I think they even have an LED version of these, I think. So that would be a good place to look to if you're looking for replacement bulbs for your vintage stereo. Now, as I was looking through this manual, and it's not really long, I skipped through it, one of the things I ran into, and I hadn't decided, again, I wasn't going to do a video on this, but I thought, you know, there's certain things, certain quirks about this that would be interesting, hopefully, to some. And one of the things I ran into with this was, maybe I can find it in here. I was rather surprised, but I actually have run into this issue. I wish I had looked this up before I turned the camera on. Hopefully it won't take me too long to find it. There aren't that many pages in this. 15, okay. Where is it? Oh, maybe it's under the tibia at the end. It might be at the end. So, oh, hum and noise. Okay. Okay. I didn't realize. I didn't even think about this because I have run into this with this radio. By the way, if you put the plug in one way, you'll get a little bit of a bite if you're connecting, say, a tape player that has a metal case, and you're touching this at the same time as you're plugging in the cord. Or, anyway, if you touch this and something else that has not been plugged into this yet, it can give you a small bite. Now, it depends on which way you've got the cord in, and it depends on whether you get the power on or off. In one position with the power off, you can get bit. With the cord in the other direction, with the power on, you can get bit. So I had decided to put a a polarized cord on this. And I think I had decided that I wanted it to not bite me when the power was off, because that's typically when you'd be connecting things to your stereo. But when I was using this as a test amp for my workbench, I ran into things that were actually humming, and there's nothing I could do about it. But here's what they say about this. Maybe, whoops, maybe I can zoom in so you can read along with me. Alright. Oops, I keep bumping my camera. In any high fidelity, okay. If hum persists, reverse AC line cord. Okay, and then I'll plug in and connect to the record player. If hum appears, reverse the record player power plug and connect a single lead from the record player chassis to the ground post on the rear of the chassis, and so on. Now, hum may also be induced by defective cables, etc. If I put a polarized cable on this, there may be some situations where I'm encountering hum, but I will not be able to get rid of it because I can't reverse the power cord. So I'm getting ready to sell this, and I said, well, I'm not sure that's a good idea to sell it the way it is. If you don't know about it, and this manual will go with them. Not everybody reads the manual. So if I sell this to somebody and they complain that, oh, it's humming, well, I can tell them, rotate the power cord and put it in the opposite of the way you have it now and see if that solves your hum. I can't tell them that if I have a polarized cord on this. So I took the polarized cord off and put another one on that's a regular non-polarized. So I'm going to, actually let's turn that off for a minute. I'm going to put this bulb in, and one of the things I've done is I put tape on the back of this, because what happens if this is sitting like this and I don't notice it and I turn it on? You know, I haven't repaired it yet. Well, that's not going to be ideal, is it? So I protected that. That was not originally here. Now, let's see. Okay, yep. Can I show you this? Can I do this without breaking anything? Can you see it? I think that might be alright. One of the things, yeah, you can't see it in the camera, and I don't offhand know what settings I need to change. This because it's LED and you've got a small circuit board in there, and the LEDs are aiming in one direction, what you may have to do is pull it out and rotate it slightly to get the brightest. That's going to work. And let's see how this looks on the front. And if I'm happy with that, I will button it down. Okay. Yeah, that looks wonderful. Yes, that looks good. All right. So I'm ready to do that. So yeah. So to maximize the light coming from this, you just rotate it until the LEDs are facing, till the LEDs are facing out. It's not a hard thing to do, so just do a little fuse style. Just pop it out, rotate it slightly, and once you have it where you are happy, then you're good to go. Now, these, oh, well, alright. I wasn't planning on doing that. Oh well. Oh, before I do that, so I don't forget, I want to show you something that's kind of neat about this little stereo. And it's not high-end, like I said, but now some of you are going to look at that and say, well, why does that matter? Okay. Let's zip in there a little bit. And that. Oops. Okay. So, main amp in, preamp out, preamp out. So, what this allows you to do is if you pull these out, you can now insert something in between the preamp and the main amp. What might you put in there? Well, if you want to have an EQ, a stereo EQ on your system, this is what you can use that for this. Put the output of the preamp into the input of your EQ, and then put the output of your EQ into your main amp in, and now you've got this in circuit, and it's handy. I can't think of what else you might want to use in there, but anything where you want to feed this out, or feed this out of the preamp and feed this in. So actually, if you wanted, say you had just something that was just a stereo amp, you could unplug this, feed the preamp of this into the input of this other more powerful amp, and you could use this that way. This has all the standard things that you'd find on a vintage stereo: phono input, tape, amp aux, tape monitor. You can use this to monitor. If you put the, I think if I remember right, if you put the output of your tape player into this, you can actually monitor what you're recording. So you can record to your tape deck and then listen to it to see if you're happy with what you're hearing. And then of course you've got two tape outs here. So it's fairly basic, but it's got stuff that could be helpful. Both speakers are protected with fuses. I stuck these quick connects on here. This has screw. Normally this would have screws that you would wrap a wire around and connect your speakers to. I did this years ago just because I thought it would be handier, and it has been. Because I tended to move things around, and I just maybe swap speakers in and out, whatever. It was just nicer to have a quick connect, and I put those on here. For a basic little amplifier, it's surprising, and that's a feature that you don't see very often. The other thing that I was going to point out, and this, I'm kind of wondering why running is an issue. Oh, I can't do that. All right, never mind. But notice that you've got this. So back in the days when you'd have a turntable probably sitting on top of your stereo, you could plug your turntable in here, and when you turn this off, this would turn off with the switch as well. There is a capacitor that goes from one leg of this to the chassis, which might, well, that's probably one of the reasons why you get bit by this thing when you're trying to connect another device to it. And obviously if you're using a vintage device, that's probably another reason why you could get bit, because some of the vintage devices would have that same issue where there's a little bit of voltage leaking to the case. So, and I ran into some of those, and it was kind of frustrating. So, what am I going to do? Oh yes, first of all I'm going to turn my soldering iron on. So I forgot to do that once again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace these and put everything together, and we'll see how it looks. I showed you what they look like with these in place. Oh, by the way, and you're not seeing what I'm seeing. Alright, let's swing this around. Yeah, okay. So this is the case for the meter. these little wheat bulbs go into the little holes here, and I had to measure these to make sure that the new bulbs would fit, and they do. Of course, when I'm playing with this, I'm going to have to be careful with the soldering iron anywhere near this. If I touch that, it's going to point and go on. Wouldn't like that very much. Oh, this stereo does have a weighted tuner. Actually feels pretty good. It's, like I said, it's not high end, but it's decent quality. I looked at all the capacitors. I didn't see any capacitors that were swelling. Thing doesn't hum or do anything bad, other than on those occasions where you've got something connected to it and you've got that interaction between the grounds, and you have to rotate one or the other to get rid of the hum. I think pretty much, though, the only thing I actually had to do to this, apart from the bulbs, was clean the controls, which are hiding down in there, but they're really easy to get to. I didn't even have to take anything apart. I just got I got my deoxit and sprayed it into the little, the controls have a little, have this little hole in the back that you can use to get spray cleaner in there, and so that works. What on earth is this? Got a spring attached to, I don't know what that is. Huh. I don't know. Okay. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you. You got a plastic case, and you got 2 screws here and 2 screws down there. For some reason, in a moment of insanity, I guess, I decided I had to take those 4 screws out to get this out to get at these bulbs. I started to do that, and I realized that I couldn't get to those bottom screws without either taking this front panel off or getting involved with the transformer. Neither of those things I wanted to do. And then as I looked, I said, oh, there's 2 screws there. You knucklehead. So there's 2 screws that hold this circuit board in place. That's all you got to do. And then you can get in there and replace your bulbs. And I'm going to replace all of them so they look the same. Plus, all of these bulbs are old, and there's a very good chance that in the not too distant future, the bulbs that I leave in there would die. So anyway, so I'm going to replace these bulbs, and I'll come back and I'll show you what it's like with the new bulbs, and hopefully that'll help somebody who's deciding whether or not they really needed frosted bulbs or not. I didn't spend a huge amount of time, but in my searches I did not find frosted bulbs in this style. So I'm trying this. Well, I decided to replace one of the bulbs and see how it compares to the original. So there's AM, which is brighter, and that is in place properly, and there's the FM, which is, and there's the funnel. So the new bulbs are 8-volt bulbs, and they seem to be a bit dimmer, but this this supply is a bit more than 6 volts, so if you had a 6-volt bulb, it's possible that it won't last very long. So I'm going to consider that acceptable. I'm going to replace all of these with these. Now, I did make a mistake with this. When I soldered it in a bit too close to the circuit board, and as a result, when I shoved this into place, the bulb didn't have enough room to move, and it broke one of the legs off, which is terminal. So I got 2 more to go, and let's see. Come on. Well, why are you being a pain? I don't get it. Well, I also left the wires a little bit longer on this new bulb I just put in, because I thought because it's a bit dimmer, it'd be nicer to have it closer to, yeah, that's a problem, closer to the escutcheon, whatever, to the display. But I'm thinking that I'm maybe left that out a little bit too long, because it's going in so far that this bulb is going, no, you can't see, it's going in so far that the bulb is actually catching on the other side of this plastic piece. So I'll probably need to unsolder this and move it in a little bit closer, because that was a bit too much, and then we'll just go forward from there. Okay, well, it's ready, and actually that works really nice. Sounds good. Those vintage speakers, I think I may have mentioned them in a previous video, but bought those Scott speakers at a tag sale. One of the woofers was missing, stuck an old Radio Shack in there, which wasn't the right one. Recently bought a pair of matched realistic woofers for the speakers, put those in there, and now that's what you hear. But those realistic speakers were vintage speakers, they weren't modern. And as you can see, this little thing puts out pretty well. It's got a nice sound. But, so here's the deal. So we've got, there's our AM, FM, that's the phono and tape amplifier. And if you go to stereo, you notice that it is indeed flickering there. So I've got all my lights. The stereo light was burned out. Do I have, let's see, if I have any better stations. It's not in stereo. It's not coming in as stereo. That one is stereo, sort of. Yeah. I mean, this is just a long antenna I have up in my attic. And it works actually pretty better than I thought it would. So anyway. Oh, and you get the tuner. So everything's working. Oh, actually I don't have that secured. I don't have this in place. Oh, there we go. So I'm just poking around, see what else I can find. Well, it's working. So anyway, I think that's pretty much the end of my thing. So, I mean, AM, FM, phono is a little bit brighter. That's where I left one of the old bulbs in. Pretty sure that's what I did. And then aux, which is also tape. So, like I said, this tells you what you're getting anyway, but I wanted them all to be working. I'm pretty sure well, you're guessing which one is going to get the most use. These two of it, AM and FM, I would expect to get more use. So they both have new bulbs in them. Tape has a new bulb in it. Phono has an old bulb. Stereo tuning has a new bulb. That one would be the one that you might want to have working the best if you're in an area where you get good FM stereo. This little guy, if you get it on a station with a good quality signal, FM, It sounds really pretty good. Surprising, especially if you have, like I said, um, decent vintage speakers that this thing can drive. Because if you look inside this, can I get a better view? Oh, yeah, so you can kind of see down in there. These, I guess you can't see with my hand there, can you? Down here, there's a transistor there, and then there's another one hiding over there, right there. So this is your output. This is your output section here, and those are tiny little transformers compared to what you're going to see in higher end sets. But whatever they did in their design of this, it works. And like I said, I used this for years, and then I upgraded to my my realistic STA 2270 that was 65 watts per channel, and that sucker will drive speakers, let me tell you. If it weren't so much of a pain, I would try to hook this up to the Optimus speakers to see how it behaves, but I do remember all of the speakers that I used with this were older speakers, so they weren't the more modern style. In fact, I had a nice, I still have them, a nice set of KLH speakers that I paid $75 for, I don't know how long ago, many moons ago, and I think I had this hooked up to those. And I also think that my, oh yes, I know it was my KLH. This is a funny story, kind of. It wasn't funny at the time. My 65 watt per channel, or realistic stereo, was putting out more watts than the tweeters in the KLHs could handle. Our daughter decided she wanted to go outside and sunbathe. The stereo and the speakers, well, let's see, let's go here. Alright, so the stereo and the speakers were here, the dining room was here, and there were open windows here, and she was out there on the side lawn getting her tan. So she cranked it to max and went out on the lawn and was enjoying the music and getting tanned until she realized that something had happened and the sound wasn't as clear anymore. I have to give her credit. She told us when we got home what she had done. Not thrilled with that. And at the time I just grabbed a couple of tweeters from Radio Shack, and they weren't the right ones either. I didn't really realize what the difference. I just need tweeters. I bought them, stuck them in. Recently, I found a place where I could get vintage style tweeters, and I put those in, and those speakers, the KLH speakers, are a whole lot better, much nicer sounding. The tweeters I bought from Radio Shack were too shrill. They weren't right for the crossover that speaker was set up with, and it just never sounded right after that. It was okay. You need to really turn your treble down to compensate, but anyway, that's another story for, well, that's all there is to that one. So I think I'm going to call this done, and I think I'll be ready to put this up for sale. Oh yes, I got to remember to put that into place. Well, I ran into a problem. Got it all together, and I ran into my volume. Turn it down for a minute. That static seems to be occurring as I move this pin. So I don't know. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is try to dedust it. makes any difference. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is usually inside, let me just, I don't know if I can get at it to show you. Alright, let's throw some light in there. Yes. Alright, let's zoom in, and you see the little black clip right there. Sometimes those get dirty, they get corroded, and they cause the problem that I'm having. So let's check out the other end since that's got a clip on it. It does. So well, right there is another black clip, and there's another one here and there. So let's see if that makes any difference. All right. There it goes. No more static. Yeah. All right. Just needed cleaning. Sure would have been nice if I had noticed that before I put it all back together. But that's the kind of stuff that happens. So anyway, I did want to include that, because I know there are some people who might not know about that particular problem and what the cure is. I'll try to go with the short and sweet, or the quick and easy. Well, of course, they're both quick and easy. But when I looked in there and I saw that it was kind of dusty, but it wasn't terrible, I pretty much figured that wouldn't be the solution. But what the heck? Clean it. It doesn't hurt anything. Doesn't cost anything. Just a little bit of canned air. And now, I'll just put a little, everything looks pretty good in there. But one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication in a couple of spots. And this has never been lubricated since I've owned it. I'm the only one who has owned this. So I know that's, yeah, we're good. All right. So it's, well, that's kind of annoying. Stop doing that. Oiling the bearings, there's a bearing here, and there's a couple of, the shaft goes through a support here, and then the support here, there's got a gear on it. It reduces wear and tear. If this radio winds up getting a lot of use by somebody, having some lubrication on there might extend its life. I mean, it's not. I mean, I've owned this for a long time, and there's no wiggle, no nothing. But the other thing that's nice is that if you lubricate it, you'll find that the tuner is much freer and smoother for tuning control. So, since I was in there, Oh, and the other thing that I want to do is, yeah, I'm going to do that too. Since I've got this, and since I'm doing this, there's a little gear right there, that gear, and then there's another little brass gear over here. And the way this is set up, you can just kind of see the spring right here. That is spring right there. This is actually two pieces, and what this spring is doing is it's pushing one half of this gear in one direction, it's pushing the other half in the other direction, and the purpose of that is to prevent backlash. And that it's probably not putting high pressure on the brass gear that it's riding against, but again, since I'm in here lubricating things, might as well just do it. I didn't think to do this before, didn't even look at it. Definitely got my attention when it was staticking like that, so I guess that's probably a good thing that it caused me to take a second look at things. Yeah. And there's no, like I said, I've played this a lot. It's been, well, it's an 84, thereabouts, I think. 82, 84, somewhere in there. And if you hold this and you try to move it, oops, yeah, there's no slot. Sorry, I got my shoulder in there. So if you hold this gear and you move this gear and you don't feel any give, any play, any slop in it, then you're fine. Of course, the nice thing about having this spring set up here is that if the brass gear wears a little bit, this will just take up the slack and you won't notice it much anyway. But it doesn't hurt anything to put a little bit of a lightweight grease on there. Since I'm in here, I'm doing it. Why not? I did at one point dust this out, clean this out, and then it sat around. Well, I don't know if it did sit around waiting for parts for a little bit, but this hasn't spent a lot of time apart. It's actually been a very good unit. It's been very reliable. I guess, oh yeah, it's got these, it's got the vents here to keep things cooler, and of course that's where all the dust got in that's in there. So, anyway, yeah, so I'm glad, well, I'm disappointed I didn't notice that while I had it apart the first time. But I'm glad I caught it. I'm glad it's working properly now. Now I can safely, in fact, let's, I can put it back together. Now I usually don't put things back together without testing them carefully. And in this case, well, I guess, I think I may have heard the static a little bit, but I just thought it was because it's nighttime and AM tends to be a little bit noisy anyway around here. Pretty lousy reception to begin with. So I kind of dismissed it as that, and that was a mistake. So hopefully I remember that and I check things out more carefully next time. Yes. Alright. Oh. Okay. There it is. One thing I always try to avoid doing is tightening up all the screws or tightening up any of the screws until I have all of them in place. And as any of you who have made the mistake of tightening up the first one or two screws, and then you find out that the next two don't want to go in, you know why I do that. All right. Okay. Okay. Oops. Okay, so just double check these, make sure they're tight enough, not too tight, whatever. Yes, that's good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a final test. I've already been burned once by this not working properly. So, okay. I wonder if that would make a... I'm talking to myself now. I have on the back of this, it has 300 ohm connection for the FM antenna. And I'm just wondering if the FM would work better if I put an actual ground on the other leg of that. But I don't know if that would make any difference. So that's working, and okay, why are you doing that? Okay. One of the problems, I believe that's our local station. I'm going to run this around a little bit because I did hear that static a little bit. That does not make me happy. But let's see if we can make sure it doesn't come back. So, alright, so are we? Yeah. It's happy now. Okay. I don't know where that hum comes from. Happens to a lot of my radios here. Some of the newest ones don't. So, okay, so I think I got rid of the static. The only other thing I didn't do is check out the tape player. So, since I'm doing this, okay, what do I have? Well, let's try this one. Okay, so that works. I was beginning to wonder if my cassette player was trouble. I'm not going to hook up a turntable and test that. Or do I? I have one. Ooh. Actually, I am going to do that. Give me a minute. So I have a turntable that I just picked up at a tag sale, and I want to test it. Alright, so this is a turntable that I just picked up, and well, let's see, it's on 40, 33, let's see if it does that. This is new to me. Very hummy. Let's try this. That's not good. Let's try that. Okay. Well, I don't know if it's this or if it's the, let's see. Let's make sure I got this plugged in properly. I did. And it's plugged in there. This phono. Well, now I really want to know. Alright. Here's what we are going to do. Yes, we are going to unplug you. I have another turntable floating around here that I can test this with. And I will do that right now. Alright, try number 2. Yes, here we are. And of course, a lot of these automatic turntables don't like it when you move them around. Okay, let's try this again. Aha. So there is a problem with the other one. Okay, I just grabbed that record just to have something to play. This is the 1812 Overture, and it does get loud in spots. Oops, excuse me. So we'll spare you that. So, well, I'm glad I checked this out, and now I know 2 things. Nothing wrong with this, any part of it. All the functions, I tested all the functions. And I have checked both. These older stereos have the ability to run four speakers in pairs, and both these sections work. Contour, all of these controls, I know those work. These controls have been cleaned, they work, that works. My tuning has been fixed. I do believe this is ready for me to send it to a new home. I think this is, like I said, this is a surprising little stereo. With the right speakers, it sounds really nice. It's not going to be concert hall filling power, but it does pretty well. So anyway, I am actually wrapping up here. I wasn't going to check everything I checked because I had this on my workbench as a test amplifier previously, and I had checked that the phono worked and that the tape part worked. I knew that, but with the way that my luck was going, with the way that things are failing, it just seemed like it would be smart to make sure, now that I'm all done, I've got it all back together for the last time, to make sure that there wasn't something else that had gone wrong in the meantime. So, alright, so I really am wrapping up here. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.